I want to start this. I'm going to start this recording by reminding the viewers to smile, to practice a smile, even if it hurts, even if you feel that sometimes you see people with a frown, their negative emotion is so transparent you can see them actually with a frown. Um, Even if it hurts, even if you feel really unhappy, practice a smile. You'll feel better. Um, One's identity, self esteem, self respect, group affiliation, agency, all of it gets affected by how we view DNA and genetics. DNA and genetics is a source of deep offense, hurt, and sadness. To say that, to say to yourself and to other people that it's all in your genetics, your faulty genetics and your faulty brain have caused you to fail. There's no hope. They might even add, don't beat yourself up. You can't help yourself or others. You need help from professionals. You have no agency. Bad actors or bad characters or bad personalities will tell you that the dukkha, the dissatisfaction or the unpleasantness or the disordered relationships or the unsatisfactory relationship that you have to life. Some will say that it's all determined by genetics. So you might not be to blame. However, there's no need for correction. If it's all genetics, then there's no correction possible. You cannot correct others. You cannot correct yourself. It's just bad genes and a disordered brain. In other words, take your medication and stop trying. So when you take the view of hardcore genetic determinism, it has nothing to do with trespassers, people who invade your privacy, malice, evildoers, other people's mistakes, or even one's own mistakes, all which can be corrected. The fatalistic genetic determinism becomes a self fulfilling prophecy. I wonder, is there a genetic vulnerability for believing in hardcore genetic determinism? Are some people more genetically wired or vulnerable to thinking in a fatalistic sort of way? Like a genetic predisposition for believing that it's all attributable to genetic predisposition. I enjoy a gentle, respectful dialogue that doesn't condemn me to a lifetime sentence to biology. When someone tells me I have bad genes, a disordered brain, I feel like I've been slobbered on or mauled by a dog. I had a dream just last night of a dog biting down on my left eyeball, and I couldn't get the dog to unclench its jaws. The fact is that someone can bite you, insult you, steal from you, lie to you, hit you, assault you, invade your privacy, and to say and then to throw up your arms and say, "Oh well, it's just genetic." But that doesn't improve the environment or one's relationship to people and things. You could say, alcoholism runs in my family. It's genetic. I guess I'll start drinking. Wrong. That's wrong. The genetic vulnerability to committing errors of any kind should be a warning, not a life sentence. There are many people who find genetic determinism deeply offensive because it reduces complex human behaviors, intelligence, and identity to fix biological blueprints, stripping away free will, personal agency, and the profound impact of environment, education, and lived experience. The pushback against genetic determinism, the belief that human outcomes are entirely dictated by heredity, is rooted in several major social and ethical concerns. Historical harms in eugenics. Deterministic arguments have historically been used to justify horrific practices, including forced sterilization, systematic discrimination, and eugenics movements in the 19th and 20th centuries. Feeling cheated or insulted by the biological lottery is incredibly heavy, but your DNA is not a life sentence. While genetics influence about 50% of your vulnerability to depression, the rest relies on environment, habits, and care. You are absolutely not trapped by your biology. Many of us are actively fighting a physical disadvantage, and recognizing the weight of that fight is a sign of immense strength. Be kind to yourself and reach out to local specialized support you deserve. And if you are speaking to a professional, nobody deserves to be told that there's no hope, that you have no pride, and that you deserve to be shamed. That is not a professional who should be able to continue in their profession. They should be asked to leave or find a new client. Um, there are all kinds of therapists and psychiatrists who are potentially abusive with their power, and it likely comes from a hardcore belief in genetic determinism, where there's nothing you can do besides medicate and force and coerce. Um, that's not the view I take. Coercion, force, force medication, sterilization. There are all sorts of things that are, excuse me, there are all sorts of practices that are not necessary. And what we need is a dialogue and a respectful exchange of ideas, not a rigid, clenched, hardcore genetic determinism. Um, there's always hope. There's always the genetic vulnerability to error is a warning. It's not a life sentence to biology. Thank you.